We start things off from the New York Post. YouTuber Nick Shirley slams California bill, claims it would stop videos exposing fraud. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Conservative influencer and YouTuber Nick Shirley called out a proposed California bill on Monday that he argued would criminalize investigative journalism, including his viral efforts to expose fraud in the state. That's in California as well as in Minnesota. The enemy truly is within, Shirley said. When our politicians would rather protect fraudsters and illegal migrants, it's time for us to stand up or face mass oppression from the traitors who rule over us, he said. Now, here's what's interesting, and you guys already know this because you're shrewd, you're aware, you have common sense. You know, you hear the left and you hear the media and Democrats scream about freedom of the press and free speech until it becomes inconvenient for them. In other words, when it starts to expose some of their world views, right? So we have Nick Shirley here. And the legislation, which one Republican lawmaker dubbed the Stop Nick Shirley Act, is aimed at boosting privacy for immigrant service providers. Authorized by Assembly member Maya Bonta, the measure would outlaw sharing the photos of personal data or provider of the internet for harassment or violent purposes. So in other words, they're trying to turn this into a privacy issue or a kind of a doxing issue, which has never been a problem for them when it comes to who they want to expose. And you guys already know that because we cover it here on the channel. It would mirror a smaller program for domestic violence survivors. Now, they're trying to couple all this together with domestic violence, but you never see them couple it together with swatting and these sorts of things that happen to other personalities. And so here we have Nick here outlining it here. So California is trying to pass this bill, right? It has up to a $10,000 fine, imprisonment, and content takedown. The proposed bill is titled AB 2624 and was made after I exposed mass fraud by immigrant groups in America. And so he says under this bill, under this particular bill, government-funded entities like the Somali Leering daycare centers would be protected from being exposed if they operated inside California. This is like the opposite of what investigative journalism is. This is what investigative journalism is, ladies and gentlemen. It's exposing people. I mean, you probably see it on your local news. On your local news team may have an investigative journalist. This is what they do. And then, of course, as we say here on the BuzWeaver channel, as soon as it becomes inconvenient for them, free speech, freedom of the press, as soon as it becomes inconvenient for them, then they want to pursue you. And this is what they did here on X, when it was Twitter. You know, if you said things, if you misgendered somebody, if you misidentified someone by their pronoun, you would be banned on X or Twitter at the time. I mean, that's not even me exaggerating. So here he says, all right, check this out, he says.
This is a bit crazy. California Democrats advance Stop Nick Shirley Act to criminalize investigative journalism. So after I expose widespread fraud all across America, and quite frankly, states like Minnesota and California are just the worst at it, letting fraud take place, especially inside of immigrant communities. For instance, the Somalians in Minnesota and then the Armenians in California. And so now they're trying to silence anybody who exposes fraud inside of California. For instance, if this bill is passed, the Quality Leering Center that was in Minnesota would be protected from being exposed. That is absolutely crazy. And the crazy thing about this is the person who's proposing this bill, her name is Maya Bonta. Her husband is the Attorney General of California. And so let's say you expose fraud. This is what could happen to you inside the state of California. You could get a misdemeanor, a $10,000 fine, imprisonment, and your content forced to be deleted. That is absolutely crazy. It is time for people to either stand up or we face mass oppression from those that rule us.
Yeah, and there you have it. And I can tell from personal experience, and you guys know from personal experience here on the BuzWeaver channel, how the channel has been impacted over the years since essentially Trump went down the escalator. And that's when everything, got nasty. I almost said something non-family friendly there. You guys know exactly what I was probably about to say. It's extraordinary. And now they want to pass this bill to then attack, anyone really who wants to try to expose this, because this is kind of becoming a bit trendy for content creators. But it is a way to expose it, and this is a major problem. This shouldn't be something that's frowned upon. Obviously, it's frowned upon by certain groups of people that are trying to protect another group of people. But this is, what we've always talked about here on the channel is it's all, we have freedom of speech, and we have, well, any kind of freedom or any constitutional rights or laws until it's inconvenient for the Democrats, right? Or the Constitution, right? They always say about protecting democracy and the Constitution. And so it's fine. But so my attitude has always been, as you guys know, that is that, their ideology, their philosophy, and their worldview, right? They don't hold themselves to the same standards they expect from everyone else. So the rules are for thee, not for me. But you guys let me know down in the comment section if any of you guys are from California. You keep up with the botas and what they're doing here in California. But I found this extraordinary because how many times as content creators, maybe even yourselves, have been experiencing these problems where I just saw a content creator here on it was here on my Instagram. Yeah, on Instagram. And she was saying that she was banned, and this is a girl who's an Irish girl who gardens out in Ireland. And, of course, they're having all that trouble with gas and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know what she posted that they took down on Facebook because, I mean, she basically talks about gardening. She may have talked about what was going on there in Ireland. I'm sorry I hijacked this with bringing this up, but it just goes to show you, ladies and gentlemen, that it's extraordinary how this turnabout happens. Because this is what we talk about here on the channel. Of course, you guys can share this with your friends who have always been wondering about why does they always start talking about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And then when someone like Nick Shirley wants to come out and expose something that's going on. I mean, fraud is a big problem in the United States when you consider how much money that we've seen, the numbers when it comes to the level of fraud that's been out there. So, yeah, you guys let me know down in the comments section what your particular thoughts are on this topic or what you've experienced there in California. And I want to thank all you guys across New Tech, that's BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey, for your guys' continued amazing support. And, of course, everyone here on YouTube. That's going to be the channel icon you guys see there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, of course. You guys can click on that to subscribe, as well as the select notification. That way you know when there's content here on the channel. And I'll see all you guys in the next video.